video series that's gonna be going back a few videos. Most of the videos where I have a certain appearance or a certain background are going to be part of a series that I do. Just because the time the apparatus it completes the video at a certain um, at a certain range, that would make it a little bit staggered, but it helps a little bit because I think that the videos are more approachable when they're at a staggered duration. But what I was getting around to saying is that I think that according to the order Osho is that, and also drawing inferences in um, corroboration, that's like ideas or statements that support one the other in such a congruence and spontaneity that you couldn't really improvise or falsify, is that and there can be that, according to Arthur Avalon, that can be between peoples that have ostensibly not met before, like the peoples of India and the people of the Americas, such as some of the ranges of consciousness in a human being. I think he referenced the Maya. There were some overlaps with that, but then also between within India, the Maya Empire of the Americas and the, I think they had something called the Papa Bull or something like that in the serpent power, and that he draws an inference around the early 20th century that might be related to the people of India. They may or may not have had contact, according to the Moorish leader and scholar Tashrik Bey, is that there's a connection between India's and what's called Africa, which is maybe actually Asia Minor, according to him, a lower tier of Asia, and then Europe. There's another name for what Europe is, going back in older understanding, but there's connections between that and the Americas. I think America is actually referred to as a Mexum. Is actually the word Mexico might have a deeper meaning or background than people would be familiar with on the surface, and that refers to the Americas. But there could be a connection between the Americas and the people of India, potentially that Tashrik Bey has referenced and suggested in certain statements. But then also, it is possible, according to Arthur Avalon, is that different people can come to the same understanding just because a lot of what it is to be human, we have similar reference and maybe come from a similar background. So we can extrapolate and land upon similar insight without direct collaboration or influence, as that's appreciated. But then between Osho and Arthur Avalon, is that who are both referencing the traditions of India, but not necessarily the same way. Is that Osho appreciates that existence is it is more unified that can be appreciated, also more diverse and can be appreciated, and more unified for being diverse and diverse for being unified, that is balanced and dynamic but also paradoxical, illogical, that is not illogical but not strictly logical, as we appreciate in a linear or cyclical fashion, but all of that and yet beyond that would make it illogical, also amoral is existence, according to Arthur Avalon. But that being, it is deeply unified, more so unified than we would appreciate, but some of our perception of self and other, that allows us to have lessons and actually taste the blessing of what it is to become unified when having thought oneself to be not the same. The type of sacrifice, commitment, and gestures and symbolism that would attend coming back to an understanding and appreciation of unity, again going beyond the limitation of what is referenced with the word unity, as that implies that it's settled and defined, or also that you would need actually diversity to have the conception of unity in one's mind, but yet more of oneness. Again, even the number one is redundant in at that degree, but and is also a concept of men for the purposes of men. That's not exactly the same of organic living existence. Not different, but not totally not grasping the scope or potential of organic existence. Is that having two eyes like that, being duplex in the first place, but also two eyes, it sets up the means of a perception of self and other that may at once be transcended with having gone, but it would take real sincere effort and real living and dying and sacrifice and worship and joy and suffering to really taste what that is. But the two eyes gives that sensation, and it would not be maybe feasible or facilitated had human beings been monocular, Because actually it would be strange to be what would look strange about being monocular would actually to have one brain is what would look strange to, because if you had one brain and one eye, that would be kind of strange. But actually having two brains as such and one eye, that's also strange. But the fact of having two eyes gives a sensation of self and other and depth. And I actually have a family member who is actually blind his whole life in one eye. But you could, I don't mean to divulge his medical status, so I won't identify who that is. But I have a family member who has limited who's deprived of vision in one eye to some extent, and his actual experience of life is different than people and has been for his whole life. He's gotten by with that, but that it actually goes to Osho's point, is that it actually takes two eyes to have the perception of depth. Also, it takes two ears to have the perception of stereo. And the great songwriter Bobby Wilson of the Beach Boys, who did a lot of the real heavy lifting of their songwriting, and was content to not go on all the tours, but to sit back and just engage writing music. He actually, I think he suffered some form of abuse from a parent when he was young, and it damaged his ears such that he doesn't experience what we appreciate as stereo. Stereo is a sensation of sound that's facilitated by some of our audio equipment. Very sophisticated understanding of sound is required for that. But that understanding has been around for at least decades within the 20th century, going back to the time of the Beach Boys, and before that, perhaps the time of Arthur Avalon, if not before. And he can't perceive sound exactly as we do, but he's not limited by that, and may actually be greater for that. Some deprivation and limitation actually makes different things greater. Visual deprivation can make hearing greater, but maybe also hearing deprivation can make hearing greater, as strange as that would sound. But that's another example of how the duality of things gives a perception of self and other. But the real actual difference that we're understanding as range or depth or whatnot, self and other, it might more so be rate, but deeper than that is intention, because you can't completely isolate intention from rate. If you try to run or walk half-assed, half intending, you can't do so as though you intend it, as though devils may care, throw caution to the wind, go about it. That might be why it's difficult. A lot of people would see like people riding motorcycles, and they would say that people riding motorcycles appear to ride motorcycles a certain way. However, the dynamics of a motorcycle is so sensitive and so balanced, but also as it engages a person, there's principles of balance and center of gravity that would align with a human being right astride a motorcycle, that are understood within the engineering. But it goes deeper than that as a reality, where sometimes there's actual in the film Power Transformers, the film with, I think Bernie Mac was in the or near around the year 2000 or 2005, in that range, directed by Steven Spielberg. The late great Bernie Mac was in that film. Shia Buff was in that film, and in that film, it's actually deeper than it might appear. They touch upon, as Shia Buff is being introduced to his first vehicle, which is very lavish for a child to be having a vehicle like that in that film. It was like a Mustang or some kind. He's getting so happy that he has a car now, and yeah, just driving my car, just driving my car. Ooh, man. And the girl's shaking him out like, oh, just driving my car, just driving off, just having my girlfriend in my car, just a little bit. Ooh, yeah, come on. It's very kind of materialistic, but it's actually deep. Is that the Bernie Mac and that, he says it's a mystical connection between man and machine. Mr. Connect, he's a salesman, and I've met less inspirational salesmen as cars go, but actually equally inspirational salesmen as motorcycles go. And they were not wrong to say that there's actually a connection between a machine such as a vehicle, because all things in this existence are simply magical. All things, animate, inanimate, organic, non-organic, man-made, not man-made, mechanical, non-mechanical. All things are magical, including vehicles. Actually, I think, and so there actually is a connection between a vehicle and a human being. Um, I appreciated that as I became a van driver driving school-age children. Some of the things that the van could do, but its responsiveness to me as a driver while conveying students at high speeds was profound to me, and I had a deep respect for mechanics after that. But it might be similar with motorcycles, where the way, first of all, our hands are deeply connected to our eyes, as our entire existence is to our eyes, not the least of which our ears or any other sense. That might have to go with how significant in the way it is to ride a motorcycle, but it might be such that you need a little bit degree of actual of confidence approaching a comfort with death, to be competent and actually safe on a motorcycle. You might need to be dangerous to be safe on a motorcycle, as strange as that would sound, and you can't appreciate that without certain experience. But I'm so I'll land that one there.